For 23 years, she sacrificed everything to give her son the life she never had, working 3 jobs while he built his empire on the foundation of her sweat and tears. But when he banned her from his luxury wedding for not being sophisticated, enough for his new high society family, he thought he'd finally escaped his embarrassing past. Until the priest stepped forward during the ceremony and asked one simple question that would shatter every lie he'd built his life upon. What happened next left 200 guests speechless and changed the meaning of family forever. Subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from as we share this incredible story of hidden truths, ultimate betrayal, and a mother's unconditional love that would expose everything. The Cathedral of St. Augustine pierced the Manhattan skyline, its Gothic spires reaching toward heaven. Inside, 200 guests filled mahogany pews, their jewelry catching light from crystal chandeliers. White orchids and roses adorned every surface, each arrangement worth more than most monthly salaries. Gabriel Winters adjusted his Armani tie at the altar. At 32, he embodied success. Founder of Nexus Technologies, a fintech giant revolutionizing digital banking. His athletic frame and sharp features had graced business magazines, always accompanied by the same story. Self-made millionaire, Wharton MBA, the American dream personified. 5 minutes, whispered James Chen, his best man and business partner. The Ashfords' photographer wants altar shots. Gabriel nodded, maintaining his practiced composure. This wedding was more than a union. It was a merger. Victoria Ashford brought 4 generations of real estate dynasty, connections spanning from Wall Street to Washington. This marriage would cement his transformation from entrepreneur to establishment. Mr. Winters? A coordinator appeared, clipboard in hand. There's a situation at the south entrance. A woman claiming to be your mother. Security has detained her per your instructions. James looked surprised. I thought your mother passed away. She did, Gabriel replied smoothly. College, cancer, this must be some confusion. He turned to the coordinator. Have security escort her away, discreetly. As she hurried off, Father Michael O'Brien approached from the sacristy. At 71, the priest moved with measured grace, his weathered face marked by decades of keeping secrets. He'd known the Ashfords for generations, baptized Victoria himself. Gabriel, Father O'Brien said, his Irish accent soft. A word before. We begin? Of course, Father. The priest's pale blue eyes seemed to pierce through him. Marriage is a sacred covenant built on truth. Are you prepared to enter this union with complete honesty? Absolutely. Victoria and I have no secrets. Father O'Brien nodded slowly, though something flickered across his expression. Very well. Outside, Eleanor Winters stood at the security checkpoint, clutching an invitation. At 55, she bore the marks of hard labor. Premature lines from night shifts, calloused hands from cleaning offices, silver streaking through self-styled hair. Her department store dress, carefully altered, conveyed dignity despite its modest origins. Ma'am, you need to leave, the guard said firmly. This is a private event. Please just look. Elena held out the authentic invitation. I'm Gabriel's mother. The guard examined it, confused, then radioed inside. His expression hardened at the response. Mr. Winters confirms there's been a mistake. His mother is deceased. The words struck like physical blows. I understand, Eleanor said quietly. Could you give him this letter? It's important. I can't. Please leave now. Eleanor nodded, tucking the letter back into her worn purse. Through the cathedral doors, she glimpsed her son at the altar, resplendent among people who'd never know the truth. She walked to a small cafe across the street, the same one where she'd once bought Gabriel hot chocolate when $3 was a miles, unaffordable luxury. Ordering coffee, she sat by the window, watching guests arrive in limousines. Her phone buzzed. Rosa, her friend. "Did you see him?" Eleanor typed with arthritic fingers. "He said I was dead. Maybe it's better." But even typing it, she knew it wasn't true. The weight of secrets pressed on her shoulders, truths that could destroy Gabriel's glittering facade. She'd protected him for so long, kept silent about things that would change everything. From her purse, she pulled out a photo album. Young Gabriel grinned back. Gap-toothed elementary smiles, proud science fair poses, exhausted but happy graduation pictures. In every photo, Elena stood beside him in work uniforms, hospital blues, office greys, hotel whites. The cafe's television showed wedding coverage. Gabriel Winters, self-made tech mogul who built himself from nothing. From nothing. Elena almost laughed at the cruel irony. In the cathedral sacristy, Father O'Brien was opening a letter dated 23 years ago with instructions to open only under specific circumstances. Those circumstances had just arrived in the cathedral's bridal suite. Victoria Ashford stood before a full-length mirror while her mother, Constance, adjusted her veil. The custom Vera Wang dress sparkled with hand-sewn pearls, its price exceeding most annual salaries. "Remember," Constance said, her voice carrying old Manhattan money's crisp accent, "this isn't just your wedding. It's a statement. The Van Dorens are here, the Blackstones, even the governor's representative." Victoria nodded obediently, blonde, hair arranged in an elegant chignon. "Everything will be perfect. Your father's counting on this merger. Nexus Technologies will add 30% to our portfolio." Constance's tone sharpened. "Though I still question why Gabriel has no family. Here, his mother died of cancer," Victoria said gently. "He doesn't discuss it." Her younger sister Charlotte caught her arm as they prepared to leave. "Vic, are you sure about this? Gabriel's past is blank before business school. No childhood friends, no college buddies except business partners." "He's private," Victoria defended, though uncertainty crept in. Sarah Chen mentioned something odd. James once saw Gabriel throw away a package from someone named Elena Winters. Gabriel claimed it was junk mail, but who gets junk mail from someone with the same last name? Victoria straightened, pushing down unease. "Gabriel's been honest with me." But Charlotte's words echoed. She'd wondered about the gaps herself. His explanations, records lost, foster homes, preferring future over past, had seemed reasonable, even romantic, the self-made man refusing definition by history. In the sanctuary, whispers rippled through assembled guests. Charlotte had been asking questions, and others were sharing observations. Dr. Patricia Morgan mentioned meeting Gabriel only 4 years ago, never hearing about his Wharton years. Marcus Rivera, a tech journalist, had hit dead ends researching Gabriel's background. Like he didn't exist before 2018. Security guard Thomas Mueller couldn't focus. Something about the woman nagged him. During a break, he searched online. Elena Winters yielded little. Cleaning company employment, a Queen's address. But searching Elena Winters, Gabriel found something. A 2009 community college newsletter celebrating students whose children receive scholarships. A grainy photo showed younger Elena with a teenage boy, partially obscured but unmistakably familiar in build and posture. Back in the bridal suite, Victoria knocked over Gabriel's overnight bag, reaching for lipstick. Among scattered contents was a small key. Queen's Self-Storage, Unit 43. Queens. Gabriel claimed he'd never lived there before success brought him to Manhattan. At the altar, Gabriel sensed the shifting atmosphere, the whispers, glances, subtle tension. He caught James looking strangely and raised an eyebrow. James looked away. Father O'Brien approached, expression grave. "Gabriel, I must speak with you privately before we begin." "Father, the ceremony. This cannot wait. It concerns your eternal soul and this union's sanctity." Nearby guests caught the exchange. More whispers spread. Constance Ashford half rose, perfect composure cracking. Richard Ashford placed a restraining hand on his wife's arm, his expression hardening. Gabriel felt his carefully constructed walls trembling. "Whatever concerns you have can wait until after." Father O'Brien's eyes mixed sadness with determination. "I've learned something, making it impossible to perform this ceremony without addressing it. Would you prefer discussing it privately or before your guests?" The cathedral fell silent, except for distant traffic, and somewhere in back, the soft click of a door opening. Thomas Mueller stepped forward, compelled by conscience. "Sir, I think we should hear her out." "You're fired," Gabriel snapped. "Remove her now." But Father O'Brien raised his hand. "Wait." He pulled out the yellowed letter. "This woman is Elena Winters, your mother, Gabriel. Or should I say, Gabriel Moreno?" Collective gasps rippled through the congregation. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. James stared as if seeing his partner for the first time. "That's a lie," Gabriel said, though his commanding tone had vanished. "I'm Gabriel Winters. My mother died of cancer." "Yes," Elena said sadly from the aisle, having entered through an unguarded side door. "You have a death certificate, but it's not mine." Elena walked down the center aisle with quiet dignity, her modest dress stark against the designer gowns. Every head turned, watching this unexpected arrival. "Security!" Constance Ashford's voice cut like crystal. "Remove her immediately." "But," Elena continued, eyes fixed on her son. Gabriel's face cycled through pale shock to flushed anger. For a moment, his mask slipped entirely. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Elena said, her voice carrying surprising strength. "But I couldn't let my son marry without trying once more." "This woman is disturbed," Gabriel announced, hands clenched. "She's been stalking me. Please escort her out." Father O'Brien intervened. "This is indeed your mother. 23 years ago, she came here, a single mother seeking help. She cleaned these floors while you slept in the pews." "Stop," Gabriel commanded, composure cracking. "This is my wedding." "It's not delusion, mijo," Elena interrupted gently. "I know why you've done this. But declaring me dead, creating false history." Richard Ashford stood slowly. "Mr. Winters, or whoever you are, explain yourself." The cathedral had become a courtroom. Gabriel stood trapped between constructed life and buried truth, calculating. "Escapes, finding none." "The storage unit," Victoria whispered. "Unit 43. What's there, Gabriel?" "How do you—" "Your real past, real documents, real name." James stepped back from the altar. The Wharton verification issues, the missing employment records. You said administrative errors. You want truth? Gabriel shouted, control shattering. Fine, yes, this is my mother. Yes, I was Gabriel Moreno. Yes, I grew up in a 2-room Queen's apartment while she cleaned offices. Satisfied. Deafening silence followed. Elena stepped forward, tears streaming. Mijo, I was never ashamed. Every sacrifice was worth watching you succeed. But not like this. Not by erasing me. You don't understand. Gabriel's voice broke. Showing up at Wharton, which I did attend, scholarship earned, watching them network with family connections while I had nothing but ambition. So you killed me off, told people I died while I worked nights helping pay your application fees. Father O'Brien stepped forward. Tell them about Michael Winters. Gabriel went white. Elena gasped. Father, no, that was to remain. Truth must. Out! Gabriel, tell them who Michael really was. Gabriel sank onto the altar steps, facade crumbling. My best friend. My only friend. Michael Winters, Father O'Brien explained, consulting the letter, befriended Gabriel at community college. From a wealthy family, he died in an accident weeks before starting Wharton. His family was destroyed, Gabriel continued, voice raw. They'd lost their daughter earlier. Michael was everything. At his funeral, their lawyer approached me. They wanted to sponsor my education. Michael would have wanted it. Full ride, but with a condition. They wanted him to take the Winters name, Elena said heavily, to carry their legacy. It started innocently, just using the name at school. They said their connections would open doors closed to Moreno. They were right. So you erased your mother, Victoria said, ice in her voice. They never asked that. My choice, my cowardly choice. How could I explain being Gabriel Winters, heir to fortune with a mother cleaning offices? The elder Winters died 5 years ago, Father O'Brien added. Left you everything, believing you honored their son. I did honor him. Everything built, every success, I did thinking of Michael. Donated millions in his name. While your mother struggled alone, Victoria interrupted. While you told us you were an orphan, Margaret Winters entered from the back, moving deliberately with her cane. At 81, she commanded respect, through presence alone. Did you think I wouldn't hear about this wedding? See what became of the young man we tried to help? Gabriel stammered. Mrs. Winters, I thought you were in Switzerland. Convenient fiction. I've been watching. We tried helping you honor Michael's memory. Instead, we created a monster. Margaret Winters approached with measured steps, her cane clicking against marble like a countdown. Despite her age, she radiated authority. My husband died 5 years ago, Margaret clarified. But I survived the accident. You assumed otherwise, eager to inherit to be free of gratitude. She turned to Elena. Mrs. Moreno, I apologize. We shouldn't have made taking our name a condition. Grief made us desperate to keep Michael alive. We didn't consider the cost. You tried to help, Elena said simply. My son wrote about Gabriel Moreno, Margaret continued. The brilliant friend who changed the world. That's who we wanted to honor. Instead, you buried that boy with our Michael. She produced an envelope. The real will. Charles and I knew about your mother all along. We investigate those we invest in. We knew about Eleanor, every struggle and sacrifice. We thought once established, you'd acknowledge her properly. Instead, you killed her off. This revokes inheritance, she announced, establishing a trust for the Elena Morenos, mothers who sacrifice for ungrateful children. You have 6 months to arrange your affairs. My investors. Obligations. James protested. Hence, 6 months. Enough time to decide. Continue living lies or become who your mother raised. What do you want? Gabriel asked desperately. Truth, all 3 women said simultaneously. Publicly acknowledge who you are, Margaret specified. Honor your real mother. Use your platform to tell where you came from. Everything will crumble. Everything built on lies should, Eleanor said quietly. What you build on truth will last. Victoria approached slowly, studying his face as if seeing him for the first time. Know what hurts most? Not the lies about name or background. It's that you thought so little of us, believed we'd only accept fiction. You never gave anyone the chance to love the real you. She removed her veil, letting it fall. I loved Gabriel Winters. Maybe I could have loved Gabriel Moreno more. We'll never know. She walked away, bridesmaids following like a funeral procession. The Ashfords departed, Charlotte glancing back with pity. As guests fled, spreading scandal through phones, only a handful remained. Gabriel stood like a man awaiting execution. Eleanor, Father O'Brien said gently. Tell him about the medical bills. Eleanor's composure broke. Father, please. What medical bills? Gabriel demanded. 5 years ago, the priest explained, your mother was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. The disease you claimed killed her. She underwent treatment alone, not wanting to burden your constructed life. During chemo, I couldn't work, Elena continued through tears. Lost jobs, insurance, bills kept coming. I sold everything, but it wasn't enough. That's when I wrote you. Not for money, just to hear your voice. Every letter returned, every call unanswered. I had everything screened, anything from Elena Winters or Moreno discarded. Father O'Brien's church helped. I cleaned their facilities. For assistance, I survived. No thanks to my son. Tell them about your savings, Father O'Brien prompted. $30,000, Elena admitted. Saved over 20 years. Wedding gift for you. I knew you didn't need it, but wanted to give something truly ours. Mama, Gabriel whispered. I gave it to the Rodriguezes. Remember Sophia, the violinist? Her father lost his job. She'd have to leave Juilliard, so I gave them everything. After your son abandoned you, Victoria asked from the doorway, what good is money in a bank when dreams might die? I couldn't watch another mother suffer that. She's now first violin in Philadelphia, Father O'Brien, added. Sends concert tickets hoping her anonymous benefactor might attend. Gabriel fell to his knees. Mama, I'm sorry. I became everything I wanted and turned into someone neither of us recognizes. I recognize you, Elena said, touching his face. Still my Gabriel, lost, confused, but mine. The truth had finally caught up with Gabriel Winters, and there was nowhere left to run. Gabriel's phone buzzed incessantly as news spread. Board members, investors, employees, his entire network reacting to live-streamed scandal. Headlines already forming. Tech CEO's wedding exposes shocking deception. They'll want statements, James said, checking his own flooded inbox. This will be brutal. His phone rang. Victoria. Gabriel answered with trembling fingers. Don't speak. Her voice was ice. My father's lawyers are drafting papers. Fraud, emotional distress. They'll destroy you. Victoria. My family's already getting calls. Vanderbilt's cancelled dinner. The Times wants statements. Charlotte's the only one finding this fascinating rather than mortifying. I never meant to humiliate me before 200 influential people. Make my family scandal fodder. Reveal our entire relationship was built on lies. Loving you was real. How can I believe anything? The wedding gifts arriving, hundreds of thousands in crystal and silver for a marriage lasting 0 minutes. I'll handle costs. With what? Byteflow pulled out 20 minutes ago. Your CFO sent company-wide emails about reassessing leadership. Your house of cards is collapsing. I'll make this right. Stay away from me and my family. That prenup. You signed under a false name? That's fraud. My father's lawyers will take everything. The line went dead. Gabriel stared at the phone, then hurled it against stone. It shattered, the sound echoing like breaking bones. Feel better? Father O'Brien asked mildly. I know, I forgive you, for my sake. Carrying anger was exhausting. Your mother invited me to a cooking class for scholars, traditional recipes from homelands. You don't have to. I want to. I liked her even during those horrible altar moments. Something felt real when nothing else did. Gabriel found Eleanor in the cathedral garden, sitting where she'd once cleaned while he slept over homework. Beautiful celebration, she said. Just the beginning. They sat watching sunset over the city, their trial and triumph. A year ago, Gabriel stood ready to pledge lies. Today, he sat with his mother, committed to truth that freed them both. What makes you proudest? Elena asked. What? Not foundation? Though wonderful, not students, though inspiring, not even success I knew you'd achieve. Then, my son came home. Not Queens, not apartment, but home to himself, to truth of identity and origin. That's greatest success. As darkness fell, mother and son sat together, united in understanding that love, real love, never required you to be anyone but yourself. Truth had finished its work, leaving not destruction, but possibility to build something real, lasting, worthy of sacrifices bringing them here. In the cathedral where a wedding died, new life was born, scarred but authentic, where Gabriel Moreno finally found what Gabriel Winters sought in vain, where he truly belonged. The next morning brought a media storm unlike anything Gabriel had experienced. Every major outlet carried the story. Tech CEO's wedding meltdown exposes years of deception. His phone, now permanently on silent, showed hundreds of missed calls from reporters, former clients, and people he'd once called friends. Mr. Moreno, a reporter, ambushed him outside Elena's apartment building. How do you respond to allegations of fraud? Is it true you stole a dead man's identity? Will you face criminal charges? Gabriel paused on the steps, Elena beside him. For a moment, he considered rushing past. Then he turned to face the cameras. My name is Gabriel Moreno, he said clearly. Yesterday, I was exposed as a liar. Today, I begin making amends. I'll hold a press conference tomorrow at 2 p.m. to answer all questions. Gabriel, Elena whispered, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Mama. No more hiding. That evening, in Elena's small Queens apartment, the same building where they'd lived during his childhood, where she'd returned after he'd killed her, Gabriel sat at the kitchen table drafting his statement. The apartment was modest but spotless, filled with photographs he'd never seen. His graduations she'd attended from afar, newspaper clippings of his successes, birthday cards never sent. You followed everything, he said, touching a framed article about Nexus Technologies' launch. A mother always follows her child's path, Elena replied, serving him coffee in a chipped mug, even when that child pretends she doesn't exist. James arrived, having fought through the media circus outside. The damage is worse than we thought. 3 more major clients pulled out. The Singapore expansion is dead, but, surprisingly, not everyone's running. Kumar from Bright Tech called, said he respects that you're facing this head-on. A few others feel similarly. If we can stabilize the bleeding, Nexus might survive in some form. Under your leadership, Gabriel clarified. I can't return as CEO. Advisory. Role maybe, eventually. If you handle this right, Margaret Winters called that night. I'll be at your press conference, she announced. The truth needs witnesses from all sides. Mrs. Winters, you don't need to. Michael would want me there. He believed in second chances, don't waste yours. The press conference venue was, at Elena's suggestion, the community centre where Gabriel had first announced the foundation. Face them where you're strongest, she advised, where you're truly yourself. 200 journalists packed the space, cameras creating a wall of lenses. Gabriel stood at a simple podium, no teleprompter, no prepared remarks beyond his heart. My name is Gabriel Moreno, he began. I was born in this neighborhood to a single mother who worked 3 jobs to give me opportunities. When I was 18, I met Michael Winters, whose family offered to sponsor my education if I took their name. Instead of honoring their generosity and my mother's sacrifices, I used it to erase my past. He spoke for 40 minutes, detailing every deception, every choice that led him further from truth. He named the people he'd hurt, the trust he'd broken, the identity he'd stolen. I stand here not asking for forgiveness. That must be earned. I stand here to say that Gabriel Winters is dead, and Gabriel Moreno is ready to face whatever consequences come. The questions came hard and fast. Will you return the Winters fortune? It's being transferred to the Moreno Winters Foundation, managed by independent trustees. Are you facing fraud charges? The district attorney is reviewing the case. I'll cooperate fully. What about your investors who lost millions? I'm liquidating all personal assets to compensate them. It won't be enough, but it's a start. Younger reporter, clearly Latina, asked, do you think your story reflects larger problems about what immigrants feel they must do to succeed? Gabriel paused. I can't speak for all immigrants. I can only say that I let fear of rejection poison everything good in my life. My mother never changed who she was, and she's the strongest person I know. I was the weak one. The district attorney's office moved swiftly. Within a week, Gabriel sat across from Ada Jennifer Walsh, who laid out potential charges: fraud, identity, theft, falsification of documents. The Winters estate complicates things, Walsh explained. Margaret Winters has provided documentation showing they knowingly permitted the name change. That mitigates the identity theft angle. But your business contracts signed under false pretenses. I'll plead guilty to whatever charges you file, Gabriel said. His lawyer, David Park, hired with Elena's help after his assets were frozen, looked alarmed. Gabriel, we should discuss. No, I'm done with strategies and angles. If I committed crimes, I'll face the consequences. Walsh studied him. The victims, your investors, the Ashfords, would need to press charges for criminal fraud. So far, they've pursued civil remedies. But if we find evidence of financial crimes, you'll find I never stole money, Gabriel said. I lied about who I was. But every business deal was legitimate. The technology, the profits, all real. That may be your saving grace. The civil lawsuits came like an avalanche. The Ashfords sought damages for emotional distress and wedding costs. Several investors sued for fraud. Each filing was another public humiliation, another headline. But unexpected support emerged too. Luis Martinez, a Stanford professor who'd grown up undocumented, wrote an op-ed about the pressures that drive people to reinvent themselves. "I don't excuse what Moreno did," he wrote, "but I understand the fear that motivated it." Elena accompanied Gabriel to every court appearance, her presence a steady reminder of what remained real. The media dubbed her the mother who refused to die, and she handled the attention with quiet grace. "They want to interview me," she told Gabriel after another reporter called. "About raising you, about how I feel." "You don't have to." "I know, but maybe sharing our story helps other mothers and sons find their way back to each other." Her interview with Maria Santos on Univision became the most watched segment in the show's history. Elena spoke simply about love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. "He's still my son," she said in Spanish, tears flowing. "Not the CEO, not the scandal. My Gabriel who helped me study for citizenship test, who fixed neighbors' computers for free. That boy is still in there." The interview humanized them both. Donations to the foundation increased. Letters poured in from children who'd hidden their backgrounds, parents who'd been rejected for their accents or jobs. Victoria watched from her Manhattan apartment, something shifting in her chest. She'd maintained public silence, letting lawyers speak for her. But seeing Elena, dignified, loving, unbroken, made her reassess. She called Charlotte. "Am I being too harsh?" "He lied to you for 2 years," Charlotte reminded her. "I know." But watching his mother, she knew who he really was all along and loved him anyway. What does that say about love? About forgiveness? 3 months into the legal proceedings, a breakthrough came. The forensic accountants found no evidence of financial misconduct beyond the identity issues. Gabriel had built Nexus Technologies legitimately, paid taxes properly, never embezzled or stolen. "It's remarkable," Walsh told him. "You lived a complete lie personally but ran an honest business. That's unusual." The criminal charges were reduced to misdemeanor false personation. The sentence, 2 years probation, 500 hours community service, and mandatory counseling. "You're lucky," Judge Chen said at sentencing. "Your victims have shown more grace than you showed them. Don't waste this second chance." Outside the courthouse, Gabriel faced the media again. "I'm grateful for the court's mercy. I'll spend my probation and the rest of my life trying to earn it." A reporter shouted, "What's next for Gabriel Moreno?" He looked at Elena, who nodded encouragingly. "First, I finish my community service. Then, I go back to school. This time, I'll study as myself." My mother always said education was the key to everything. Turns out she was right about that too. The ceremony was conducted in English and Spanish, honoring both families. Gabriel's vows were simple. "I promise to always be exactly who I am, Gabriel Moreno, son of Elena, teacher, perpetual student of truth. I promise to love you with the same fierce honesty you've shown me." At the reception, held at the community center naturally, toasts ranged from hilarious to heartfelt. James recounted Gabriel's transformation from insufferable CEO to slightly less insufferable teacher. Margaret spoke about second chances and the courage to change. Victoria, surprisingly, had sent a congratulatory note that Sophia read aloud. "To authentic love and the courage to be yourself. Wishing you both every happiness." But Elena's toast silenced the room. "My son died twice," she said. "Once when he buried Gabriel Moreno beneath Gabriel Winters. Again when that false life collapsed. But like all good stories, death wasn't the end. He came back to life, piece by piece, truth by truth. Today, watching him marry Sophia, who sees him clearly and loves him completely, I know the resurrection is complete. The foundation had grown beyond their wildest dreams. 5,000 scholarships across the country, tech centers in 20 cities, a mentorship network spanning continents. Corporate partners who'd initially fled had returned, drawn by the authentic mission. Gabriel still taught at the community center, still lived modestly, still worked to repay emotional debts that couldn't be quantified. But he'd found something Gabriel Winters never possessed: peace with himself. No regrets. Father O'Brien asked during a quiet moment at the reception. "How can I regret the path that led here?" Gabriel replied. The lies nearly destroyed everything, but the truth rebuilt it stronger. As the evening wound down, Gabriel found himself on the community center's roof with Sophia and Elena, the two women who knew him completely and loved him anyway. "Ready for the honeymoon?" Elena asked. They were going to Puerto Rico, where Gabriel would finally meet the extended family he'd denied for so long. "Terrified," he admitted, "meeting cousins, aunts, uncles who know what I did. They also know what you've become," Sophia said. "Your mum's been bragging about you for years." "Only the good parts," Elena said with a wink. As the city lights twinkled below, Gabriel realized the view had changed. Manhattan no longer represented a kingdom to conquer, but simply part of a larger tapestry, one that included Queens, Puerto Rico, and every place touched by their students' dreams. "Thank you," he told Elena, "for never giving up, for loving me when I couldn't love myself, for showing me that the most powerful truth is the one we tell about ourselves." "Mi hijo," she replied, using the words that had sustained them both. "You were always worth waiting for." The cathedral bells rang midnight, marking not an ending but a continuation of truth, of purpose, of love that transcends deception. Gabriel Moreno had finally come home, not to a place but to himself, and found that was where he'd belonged all along. In the building where a mother was once denied entry, a son had learned that the only doors worth opening are the ones we open with truth. "No, but it's the first honest thing I've done today." Thomas Miller looked up from his phone. "The security footage leaked, you denying your mother. It's viral." The video was everywhere. Eleanor being turned away, Gabriel declaring her dead. Comments ranged from brutal to sympathetic. "Imagine being so ashamed you literally kill your mother off. She sacrificed everything and he threw her away. That poor woman's dignity despite everything. That's real class." "Wait," James said. "Someone started a GoFundMe for your mother. Support Elena Moreno, the mother who refused to stay dead. It's raised $70,000 in 30 minutes. "No, I don't want charity," Elena protested. "People see a mother's love persevering. They want to help," Father O'Brien explained. Gabriel watched the number climb, strangers doing more for his mother in an hour than he'd done in years. His replacement, phone buzzed with an emergency board call. In the side chapel, 8 faces stared from the screen, his board of directors who'd invested millions in Gabriel Winters. "Immediate resignation," Patricia Morse, CFO, demanded. "You've operated under false identity. Every contract, every representation, potentially fraudulent. The technology is real." "But trust isn't," interrupted Keiko Tanaka. "Our Japanese partners are withdrawing. Honor is everything." "James will be interim CEO," Patricia continued. "Sign whatever needed. Protect the employees. They shouldn't suffer for your lies. After the call, Gabriel found Elena showing James phone photos. Young Gabriel with his first salvage computer. He'd fall asleep coding, she was saying. Always dreaming. That explains his intuitive understanding, James mused. Building from scratch. How bad? Father O'Brien asked as Gabriel returned. Lost everything. Company, money, life built. Gone. Not everything, Elena corrected. You haven't lost me. A mother's love doesn't depend on stock prices. Gabriel knelt before her, tears finally coming. I don't deserve forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's love choosing healing over hurt. 6 weeks later, Gabriel Moreno, legally restored to his birth name, stood in a Queens community center. Folding chairs and flickering fluorescents replaced crystal chandeliers, but the 70 attendees came by choice. My name is Gabriel Moreno, he began. 6 weeks ago, I was living a lie. Today, I tell you truth. Elena sat front row in the same modest dress. Beside her, surprisingly, Margaret Winters attended what she called the real beginning. I was born here. My mother raised me alone, working 3 jobs. When I met Michael Winters, his parents offered education if I took their name. I thought I was honoring their son. Instead, I dishonored everyone who loved me. Gabriel had given this speech dozens of times to investors, journalists, anyone who'd listen. Each telling wore truth into his soul like water on stone. The Puerto Rican kid fixing computers for food. Real. Studying by streetlight when electricity was cut. Real. My mother practicing English with my homework. The truest thing in my false life. Rosa Hernandez, Elena's friend, wiped tears, remembering finding Elena asleep over Gabriel's textbooks, determined to understand her brilliant son's learning. But here's what I've learned. The background I was ashamed of made me who I am. Every innovation came from finding solutions without resources. Every algorithm from understanding systems bottom up. Every success built on foundations my mother laid. Today, with my mother's blessing and Mrs. Winters' support, we're launching the Moreno Winters Foundation. Elena looked up sharply. This was new. Full scholarships for first-generation immigrant STEM students. But unlike traditional aid, these celebrate origins. We'll connect students with professionals sharing their backgrounds, creating authentic networks. Margaret stood slowly. My son wrote about Gabriel Moreno, seeing solutions where others saw obstacles, building bridges where others saw walls. It took time, but you're becoming who Michael believed you could be. The Winters estate will fund this foundation as investment in truth. Applause erupted. Elena embraced her son, whispering the Spanish words from his youth. Mi hijo, mi orgullo, mi corazón. My son, my pride, my heart. The gathering became reunion. Neighbors shared stories of Elena's kindness, young Gabriel fixing computers while refusing payment. You taught my daughter calculus, said Mr. Rodriguez, whose family Elena had helped. She's an engineer now. Thomas Mueller approached with his phone. Victoria Ashford gave an interview. Gabriel read, I was engaged to fiction, but I've thought about why Gabriel felt he had to create it. We claim to value merit, but really value connections. We say we want diversity, but punish difference. Gabriel made terrible choices, but society created conditions making them seem necessary. I understand better now. She doesn't hate me, Gabriel said wonderingly. On the community center roof, Gabriel and Eleanor looked over the neighborhood that shaped him. Manhattan glittered distantly, no longer a kingdom to conquer, but part of a complex world. Regrets? Elena asked. The lies, pain, lost years. But without falling so far, would I have found solid ground? Without losing Gabriel Winters, would I have found Gabriel Moreno? Philosophy from my son. Next you'll quote Neruda. Actually, I have been. You can cut all the flowers, but you cannot keep spring from coming. No matter how I tried cutting, roots, truth would bloom eventually. They stood in comfortable silence, watching city lights. Tomorrow brought challenges, lawsuits, rebuilding, establishing foundation. But tonight, Gabriel Moreno was exactly where he belonged. 1 year later, the Cathedral of St. Augustine hosted another gathering. Not Manhattan's elite, but students, teachers, families touched by Moreno Winters' foundation. Gabriel stood at the podium in an off-the-rack suit. Elena sat front row in a self-made dress, dignity never depending on labels. A year ago here, I lost. Everything I thought mattered. Today we celebrate finding what actually does. 53 students had received scholarships, paired with immigrant background mentors. Programs expanded beyond STEM to include arts, business, social services. Gabriel introduced scholars: Fatima al-Rashid, Syrian refugee studying bioengineering, while teaching Arabic. Carlos Mendoza, son of farm workers, who patented revolutionary hydroponic systems. Each represented generational sacrifice and determination. Today's about more than scholarships. It's about truth. Our scholars sign an authenticity pledge, honoring roots, lifting others, remembering strength comes not despite background but because of it. Victoria sat middle rows, having followed the foundation's work, making anonymous donations. Gabriel pretended not to recognize. I spent years erasing my mother, Gabriel continued. Today I tell you about Elena Moreno, architect of any success I've achieved. He shared stories. Elena saving coins in a jar marked Gabriel's future, teaching herself chemistry for his homework, wearing the same coat 10 winters so he could have a graphing calculator. Every algorithm, innovation, solution started with a woman believing love could transform circumstances, education could break cycles, children's dreams were worth any sacrifice. Standing ovation erupted as Elena wiped tears, but Gabriel wasn't finished. The foundation received Michael Winters' entire estate, donated by Margaret. Will expand nationally, 10 cities offering not just scholarships but legal aid, job training, mental health support. Thunderous applause. Margaret stood, accepting recognition while redirecting attention to students. Redemption isn't destination but daily choice. Every morning I choose Gabriel Moreno over fiction. Some days are harder, old instincts return. Desire to impress, hide, be anyone but myself. His eyes found Victoria. She nodded, acknowledging unspoken apology. Authenticity isn't just truth about past, but living truthfully now. Means admitting ignorance, requesting help, understanding vulnerability as strength. To our scholars, you'll face moments when hiding seems easier. People will suggest success requires assimilation over authenticity. Remember, your story is strength. Accents are music, traditions are treasures, families' struggles are foundations, not burdens. Sofia Rodriguez entered with her violin, the young woman Elena's savings had kept at Juilliard, now Philadelphia Orchestra's first violin. Her melody captured sorrow and hope intertwined. Gabriel thought about redemption's mathematics. Lost fortune built on lies, gained purpose grounded in truth. Lost fiancé, loving illusion. gained community embracing reality. Lost name Winters, reclaimed Moreno, and himself. The Chinese practice kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, making repaired pieces more beautiful than originals. We're taking American dreams, broken fragments, and rebuilding something inclusive. He looked at Elena. My mother never needed redemption. She never lost her way. She knew herself daily, loving her son enough to let him fall, loving enough to catch him when he remembered his own wings. Reception followed, scholars mixing with donors, queens meeting Upper East Side, 100 languages creating possibilities. Symphony. Gabriel facilitated connections, introducing people, dreams, stories. Victoria approached as crowds thinned. You look different. Not clothes, something else. I look like myself. First time in years. It suits you. Truth suits better than any designer suit. I'm seeing someone, she continued. A teacher from PS 84. Bronx-raised, self-made, sends money to his Puerto Rican grandmother. My parents are horrified. Gabriel smiled genuinely. Good for you. He reminds me of who you really were. Could have been if brave enough from the beginning. I'm sorry, Victoria, for everything. Gabriel's community service assignment seemed fitting. Teaching computer skills at the Queen's Community Center, where everything had unraveled and begun again. His students were recent immigrants, elderly residents, kids from the neighborhood, people who reminded him of his younger self and Eleanor. Mr. Moreno, asked Fatima, a Syrian refugee in his Tuesday class, why you help us when you have troubles? Because helping you helps me remember who I really am, he answered, fixing her laptop settings. And please call me Gabriel. The work was humbling. Gone were the executive assistants, the managed schedule, the corporate hierarchy. Instead, he arrived early to set up folding chairs, stayed late to clean up, patiently explained basic functions to octogenarians who reminded him of neighbors from his childhood. Elena often stopped by with homemade empanadas for the students. She became beloved at the center, teaching informal English conversation classes, sharing recipes, mothering everyone who needed it. Your mama is special, Mr. Petrov, an elderly Russian student, told Gabriel. She has light inside. I know, Gabriel replied. I just forgot for a while. Margaret Winters visited monthly, reviewing the Foundation's progress. The unlikely friendship between her and Elena had deepened, two mothers bound by loss and hope. Michael would have liked this, Margaret said, watching Gabriel help a young student debug code, seeing his friend teaching others, building bridges. The Foundation had exceeded expectations. With Margaret's funding and careful management by independent trustees, they'd awarded 200 scholarships in the first year. More importantly, they'd created a mentorship network connecting established professionals with students who shared their immigrant backgrounds. One evening, James stopped by after the center closed. Nexus Technologies had stabilized under his leadership, though much smaller than before. I have a proposal, James said. We're developing educational software, coding platforms for underserved communities. Pay would be consultant rates, not be CEO salary, but you'd design programs for people like your students. Gabriel looked around the empty classroom at the old computers he'd refurbished, the motivational posters Elena had hung in Spanish and English. Can I work from here? Part of my probation already cleared it with legal. You'd create here, we'd implement and distribute, bringing technology education to communities that need it most. Partners? Gabriel asked. different kind than before. But yes, Victoria's lawsuit settled quietly 6 months after the wedding. Her lawyers had sought substantial damages, but she'd instructed them to accept a moderate amount, enough to cover actual costs, not enough to destroy. She'd sent one message, through lawyers: use the rest to help your students. Consider it my investment in truth. Gabriel had stared at those words, feeling something crack open in his chest. Not hope for reconciliation, but recognition of grace undeserved. ABC News ran a follow-up segment 1 year later. The reporter found Gabriel teaching a room full of students. Elena serving lunch she'd prepared, Margaret discussing expansion plans with the foundation board. "A year ago, you lost everything," the reporter noted. "Any regrets?" Gabriel considered. "I regret the lies, the pain I caused." But losing Gabriel Winters, that wasn't loss, it was liberation. He was never real. This, he gestured at his students, his mother, the humble classroom. This is real. The piece included interviews with scholarship recipients thriving in colleges, Sofia Rodriguez performing at a foundation fundraiser, business leaders praising the mentorship program. But the most powerful moment came when they interviewed Elena. "Your son denied your existence, claimed you were dead. How did you forgive him?" Eleanor's answer was simple. "He was lost. When your child is lost, you don't stop loving them. You leave the light on and wait for them to find their way home." Gabriel found his way. That's all that matters. The segment ended with mother and son walking through the old neighborhood, pointing out landmarks from their shared past. No longer hidden but celebrated, no longer denied but embraced. 2 years into his new life, Gabriel received an unexpected email. "Can we meet? Victoria." They arranged to meet at the same cafe where Eleanor had waited during the wedding. Neutral ground, public space. Gabriel arrived early, nervous in ways that boardroom negotiations had never made him. Victoria entered wearing jeans and a simple sweater, far from the designer clothes of their past. She looked younger, somehow lighter. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi." They sat awkwardly until Victoria laughed. "This is ridiculous. We were engaged, Gabriel. We can manage coffee." "I wasn't sure you'd ever want to see me again." "Neither was I. But therapy has a way of changing perspectives." She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about accountability versus transformation. You're accountable for the lies. But watching your transformation, it made me examine my own life." "What do you mean?" "I left Ashford Real Estate, started a non-profit, affordable housing advocacy. My parents nearly disowned me." She smiled. "It felt wonderful." "That's amazing, Victoria. Your mother inspired me, actually. Her strength, her dignity, made me realize I'd been living my own kind of lie, the dutiful daughter, the perfect heiress. Different from yours, but still inauthentic." They talked for 2 hours, not as former lovers, but as people who'd both shed false selves. Victoria shared her work with housing initiatives. Gabriel described his students, the software programs, the daily choice to be himself. "I'm seeing someone," Victoria mentioned eventually. "Mark, the teacher from PS 84. He's nothing like what my parents wanted. He's everything I need." "I'm glad," Gabriel said, meaning it. "You deserve happiness." "So do you. Have you dated No. Still figuring out who I am. Hard to share that with someone else when you're still under construction. Victoria reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. For what it's worth, I forgive you. Not for your sake. For mine. But also, I see who you're becoming. It's who you might have been all along if the world had let you. After she left, Gabriel sat in the cafe, feeling a weight he'd carried for 2 years finally lift. Forgiveness, he realized, was its own form of truth-telling. The Foundation's annual gala approached, a celebration at the community center rather than a ballroom. Gabriel worked with students to prepare presentations, helped Eleanor coordinate catering from local immigrant-owned restaurants, ensured every scholarship recipient could attend. You nervous? Elena asked the night before. Terrified, Gabriel admitted. What if people just see the scandal, the liar? Then they're not looking closely enough. Show them who you are now. The gala exceeded expectations. 300 attendees packed the center. Students, donors, community members, and surprising guests. Thomas Muller, now the Foundation's security director, had become one of its fiercest advocates. Several of Gabriel's former clients attended, having quietly supported the Foundation despite severing business ties. The highlight came when scholarship recipients spoke. Anya Volkov, studying engineering at MIT, talked about arriving from Ukraine with nothing. Diego Ramirez, pre-med at Johns Hopkins, shared how his parents' sacrifice motivated his studies. Each story reinforced the Foundation's mission, supporting those who straddled two worlds. Gabriel spoke last, his remarks brief. 2 years ago, I stood before you exposed as a fraud. Today, I stand as someone learning the power of truth. These students embody what I failed to understand, that strength comes not from hiding who you are, but from building bridges between where you came from and where you're going. He introduced the newest initiative, tech incubators in immigrant communities, funded by a surprising source, anonymous donations from several tech billionaires who'd been moved by the Foundation's work. Turns out, Gabriel said, truth is contagious. When you stop hiding, others find courage to emerge too. The evening ended with Sofia Rodriguez performing a piece she'd composed, Variations on Coming Home. As the violin sang its complex harmonies, Gabriel stood with Elena, surrounded by students whose futures were brighter because his lies had finally given way to truth. 5 years after the wedding that never was, Gabriel stood again at the altar of St. Augustine Cathedral. This time, he wore a simple suit bought with his teaching salary. This time, the guests were students, colleagues, and community members who knew exactly who he was. Dearly beloved, Father O'Brien began, his eyes twinkling. We gather today to witness something I've waited years to see, an authentic celebration. Beside Gabriel stood James as best man, still his business partner, but now truly his friend. In the front row, Elena sat beside Margaret Winters, both women dabbing at tears. The bride appeared at the chapel entrance. Sophia Reyes, a fellow teacher at the community center who'd started as his student 3 years prior. Brilliant, kind, and grounded, she'd seen past his history to his heart. Her wedding dress was her grandmother's, altered with loving care, nothing designer, everything meaningful. I fell in love with Gabriel Moreno, Sophia had told him when they'd started dating. The teacher who stays late to help struggling students, who builds computers from spare parts for families who can't afford them, who looks at his mother like she hung the moon. I don't care about Gabriel Winters. He sounds exhausting. As she walked down the aisle, Gabriel thought about circles, how we travel far only to return transformed. The cathedral that had witnessed his complete unraveling now witnessed his authentic joy.